So, hello everyone. In this hopefully shorter stream, we will continue with our foreach loops and hopefully get some decent tooling integration by the end of the stream. So, what is our plan for today? First off, I'd like to give a quick recap how we are currently with for loops. Then we will do the work around tooling. We have two new keywords that we need to care about, for and in, and we have to care about it in terms of syntax highlighting, completion providers, and that's probably it for keywords. But then we will have to work on inlay hints. As you know, maybe I can show you in the other window. When we declare a variable, let's not do shadowing in this sample. So if we don't specify the type ourselves, then the language server will happily provide an inlay hint for us. And it does this in even more complex scenarios. So if I instantiate a list, and now it's of course yelling at us because it couldn't complete inference in this method. But if I finally make it happy by adding a well-known value with a known type, then it will tell us that this is a list of int32s. So what we would like here is that if we don't specify the element type here explicitly, we could specify it like this. Then we would like an inlay hint here, just like for variables. And finally, we would like to be sure that renaming works. Currently there's some renaming support. I'm hoping this will work. But you can rename something with F2, just like in most IDEs. And we would like to get that to work with for iterator variables as well. So, where we are at with for loops is that they currently work. We have done syntax analysis, we have done the semantics work, we did binding, and we lower them into while loops just like C# does. And this is supposed to compile and run. I think I have it set up correctly. So if I run it, yes, we will get the numbers from 0 to 9. Now, unlike last time, finally we can iterate over lists as well. Last time we had a limitation because we didn't load and handle nested value types from metadata. Since then this has been fixed and merged into the compiler, and I synced this branch. So if we create a new list and we push some values in it, let's just do 1 and 6 and maybe 7, just to be a bit random and prove to you that it actually does iterate this list. Now we try to run it. It prints these numbers. And we also did off the camera some boring work. We made it so you can only iterate over iterable things. If I specify an integer here, we get proper error reporting with the position that you expected. And it's telling us that there's no get enumerator on an integer, which is fair. You need a get enumerator to be accessible on the type to be considered iterable. Okay, so first and foremost, let's get this syntax highlighted, because this looks quite ugly compared to a while loop, for example. It's nicely purpled out, the keyword, and we would like the same for the for and in keywords as well. So let's do that. Now, a bit of a forward. Working on tooling is a bit more painful, especially around the language server. This is because, of course, when we open up a Draco project in VS Code, the language server will run as well, so you cannot exactly reinstall a running tool. So we will have to close and reopen VS Code tabs all the time and I might close the wrong thing. Let's hop into the syntax highlighting project for Draco. Now, what we do is very similar to what the C# extension does, is that we have a YAML file that we edit by hand, and this ugliness specifies our highlighting. And then when we compile, or rather package, the VS Code extension, which is in TypeScript, we have a step there. Let's open up that as well because we will need it. We translate that YAML into equivalent JSON, and I think we do that here in package.json with a tool. I might be able to locate it. Yes, I think it's copy grammar. No, it's not. I suppose we don't have that automated yet. It's not a problem. We can just search for a tool online for that, so it's no biggie. So first and foremost, let's look at what we are doing with the while keyword. You should just search up the keywords we have here. Okay, so we have a section for control keywords, which are if, else, while, return, and go to. So I suppose we can just add for. And I do not know what keyword I'm going to consider in. For now, I think we can consider it a control keyword as well. So this should be enough to get some highlighting going on. Now I'm going to search for a tool that can convert from YAML to JSON on another screen. Okay, I think that should be it. Let's just verify by searching for the for keyword. Okay, that one's here. So let's save it, and maybe the easiest way to test this would be to reinstall the Draco extension locally. Now you can do that. There is a script that we have in the compiler project directly. So if you navigate to scripts, you can see that there are a few temporary files, of course, because some of the scripts build here locally, but they're git ignored, and I never bother cleaning them up. But for example, install vscx installs the VS Code extension. So let's do that. I do not know if VS Code likes me installing it while I have it running, but we will see. Okay, it looks like it reinstalled. Let's look at the sample here. Okay, I think we need to reload it. Yes. Awesome. That's essentially step one done then. We already have highlighting. Awesome. So let's commit this. And let's see what's next to do on the list. Okay, the next one should be completion provider. Now, what we mean by completion provider is that if I can find the Draco code, when you start typing, we give you a bunch of completion options. Now, these are mostly things that you find in the BCL, because of course we have a lot of namespaces imported, but even the global namespace like system is just available here. But we also provide completion for the basic keywords. This is something Binto started and we went with it. It's somewhat useful, so you can do this. But of course, if you don't have a for loop in your code yet, for is not present, even though if we don't have a while either, while will be present. This is because we didn't add it to the completion provider. Now, let's quickly add those keywords. That shouldn't take long either. Completion is in the compiler project, and it's within the API where we provide a bunch of utilities for tools. So it's not language server specific. It's something that any tool could take advantage of. And especially we have a keyword completion provider, and here we essentially construct all the keywords that are valid in declaration context. We look at that as well, and the keywords that are valid within an expression. So theoretically, here you wouldn't get a while loop completion, but here you do get one. This is because we consider a very rough idea of a context here. So let's just duplicate for and add it as a keyword. Now, I am not sure if we want in as a possibility for completion here, but we might add it because I am not sure what context to add it to yet. Maybe we'll just go with in here and add a to-do to check if this is the right context. And we will see. Now, unfortunately, for this to kick in, we do have to reinstall. We do have to recompile the compiler, and we need to recompile the language server. So this means that I will have to close the project and maybe even the foreach loops, because that spins up a language server. Let's just close off essentially everything, and for reinstalling the server, that's very simple. We have a script for that as well. Okay. Let's see if we have completion. Okay, let's just give a second for the lang server to spin up. Okay, we have 4. Okay, we already have a code action and completion failure. This is probably due to something else, though I'm getting in within the completion here. What's the problem here? Unexpected input while parsing expression. Expected token in. Did I mess this up by the completion provider? Let's see if I did. We can quickly reinstall the lang server and check. Let's see. No, apparently. Apparently this is an ongoing problem. Okay. No worries. We will debug it as how I usually debug. When there is a tool crash, I usually attach it to the language server we have. And then I'll do a change on the code. Oh, we have a bunch of breakpoints set up. What I'm hoping for is that I can reproduce the crash. So I'll start typing off screen. Okay. I don't mind about diagnostics. Okay, cannot access the result of an Unresolved promise. Okay, so we do have a problem here in a delay expression furthermore. Okay, I think we will have to track this down off stream. We might do something stupid in the language server, or even maybe in the compiler when we're binding and we couldn't complete inference somewhere. For example, I here in this code is definitely not inferred yet, so that could be a promise in the solver that we couldn't resolve. So unfortunately we will ignore that for now. Also, if you're wondering why the for is not highlighted, it's because I probably reloaded the old extension. I don't know if I could even do that. Okay, let's move on to the next thing. We will commit this and I'll just have this commented out and we will see what we can do with this context. Okay, let's look at the next thing. Again, it's kind of annoying, but we will have to reopen this VS Code window. It was this one that contained the to-do list. Okay, so we now have completion, and I believe that the more interesting thing is getting Inlay hints working. So let's write some sample code for that. So what we want to see is that we would get the type specified here for us if we don't specify it ourselves. I'm hoping that if I restart the VS instance, then we won't get this binding problem. Okay, wonderful. So let's work on that. Now that one is actually language server specific. So for that we would go into the language server project. Now we have an LSP and a language server project. LSP is a generic language server protocol implementation because we weren't satisfied with the existing ones in .NET. And Draco.language server is our actual language server for the Draco language. And within that we have every capability split out into multiple files. So inlay hinting would be in inlayhint.cs, and the logic for it is actually very simple. We are getting a range from the language client, a range where it is interested in the inlay hints that should be visible to the user. If we peek into it, we get a range and the text document from the language client, so we can just go through that range and don't have to compute anything more than we need. Of course, we provide utilities within the compiler to be able to traverse only the subtree that is intersecting that given range. And here we're already going through that, and if the configuration allows for variable types to be inlay hinted and we're in a variable declaration syntax, then we do the hinting. Of course, we skip the declaration if it has a type specifier syntax. Otherwise, we just query for the symbol, check its type, and so on and so forth. This is important because we have configuration for inlay hints. We support inlay hints for variable types and for parameter names, and since parameter names was found pretty annoying by a few users, we decided to make both configurable. I usually have parameter names turned off as well, as I find it a bit too much. But for for each loops, we will just consider them variables. So let's add another case here. So if we allow variable types to be displayed, this config, by the way, is I think it's Inlay hints configuration. Okay, so the naming is not that horrible because we're within the Inlay hint configuration section. So, and the node is a for expression syntax. Then we will consider it for Inlay hinting. Of course, if the element type is already specified, we will just skip that. Otherwise, we will have to query for the declared symbol by the iterator syntax. The iterator syntax being the name of the variable, so essentially what symbol is introduced by this I here, and then we can add it to the Inlay hint list that we are constructing here. Now, since it's going to be very similar to what we are doing here, I'm just going to copy this, and instead of the variable declaration syntax, we're asking what the iterator is declaring. That's the declaring syntax here. And well, this is the position of the hint should be at the end of the iterator token, so it should be this. And yep, it's a type hint, and this is the syntax that we'll use for it. I think everything else should be fine. Now I have to close the VS Code instances again because we're going to recompile the language server. And let's hope that this works. Okay, it needs a second for the language server to spin up. I think it should have displayed by this point though. Okay, it does work. We just have that off by one bug. If you go to the repository, you will see that we have a scheduling bug, so sometimes you need a code update for hinting and such to kick in. This is because we are ordering messages the wrong way. We will be working on that though quite soon. Let's see if this actually works. Let's construct a list of well, maybe strings, and let's see if I switch this to L. We're getting strings. Wonderful. So if I specify it explicitly, the hint will be gone. So with that, I deem the feature complete. Again, let's commit it. And let's move on to possibly the last thing, which is, if I remember correctly, it should be renaming. Okay, let's see. First off, I'll actually try to rename it and see what happens. So let's do something like this, and let's try to rename I to something like K. And out of the range of valid values. Okay, and what if I do it here? Okay, so it doesn't work. Let's see what our renamer does here. So when we have a rename request, first off we go through the syntax tree, add that position, and see if there is any referenced or declared symbols at that position, and we take the innermost one in case we're crossing multiple. and if there is none, we return early. Oh yeah, we are also missing a check. Currently, we should be able to rename everything, even metadata stuff, which obviously won't work, but currently the language server allows for it, which is funny. But why is this out of the range? We could definitely try to debug this, so I'll reattach it to our language server, and I'll try to rename I on my other screen. Let's see if it found a symbol. It definitely did. Okay. And okay, text edits is a lazy thing here, so I don't think I'll get anything out of that unless I force evaluate it here. Let's take a look. Okay. So it does find the declaration side of it, which is sort of a relief. Well, no, it found the file, but what I actually care about is what we found in this file, because I think this is grouped by files, yes. So what I want is the edits that we are doing in this file. Oh, we are getting an out of range here, and this is because this is the first case where the declaration site is just a syntax token by itself. So this is the next thing that we will have to work on. Now we will continue in a second, guys. I'll have to be right back. Okay, sorry. So let's continue. So we crashed because the syntax node here could never have been an identifier before, and this is because this is the first time that an identifier itself is introducing a new symbol. So we will have to do a bit more sophisticated check here. So in case this is a syntax token, let's call it T. When this T is part of a for loop, where this token is the iterator of that for loop. So let's write the condition for that. Okay, and then we call a rename token, which creates the text edit, of course. Yeah, we can just do that, and we just have to pass in T itself and the new name. So this should at least help us renaming the source And I suppose it will fix everything by then. I am not 100% sure. So the best we can do is to try it out. I'll quickly close off our VS Code instances before it yells at me. And let's try our scenarios. So first off, I'll try to rename I, and we'll rename it to K. And it didn't do anything. Okay, let's slap on the debugger and find out why that is. Now we should be hitting this branch. So I'll try to rename it. And we're not hitting that branch for some reason. In that case, let's put a breakpoint here and see what we are hitting. Okay, that's interesting. So for some reason, we are passing in the entire compilation unit, or at least the entire function, which we shouldn't. Let's see why that is. Let's unwind this call stack a little. So the reference symbol was okay. Oh, for some reason I think I renamed the function. Interesting. Okay, that's weird. I'm sure I didn't mean to do that. I'll try to rename the loop variable this time. Okay, we're properly referencing I. Let's see the reference nodes, which is probably a lazy link thing. So I will just evaluate it here to see what that is. Okay, this looks fine. It found all the references. Well, this is a pretty trivial piece of logic that we repeat a lot, so I was hoping it would work. And let's see what text edits we got. Again, similarly to here. Okay, this time it looks like we are hitting the right branch. Okay. Okay, apparently VS Code sent us this twice, but it seems to be working. So let's try this again. I should really have removed the breakpoints. So let's try to rename this to I. And for some reason, it's renaming the function, which is quite funny, but not what I want. What if I try to rename this? It actually did rename this in this case. So renaming this way seems to work. Let's try to rename it to J. Oh no, it's renaming this variable. Again, there's something funky going on here. Let's try to debug it again. I'll try to rename from the declaration site again. So the reference symbol is main, which is weird. Because that explains why we are renaming the function itself. I'm just not sure why we are referencing that symbol in the first place. Character 10, line 8. That seems correct. Oh, it may be because I was standing at the start of that variable, or at the end, and maybe traverse subtree at position maybe excludes one of the ends. We can verify that by just giving it a longer name and trying to rename in the middle. So let's rename to QWE, and let's rename it to ASD here. Yep, that works. So we probably just need a different traversal function here. So this is a positioning bug. Now let's see what kind of traversals we have. Now we can iterate by index, position, intersecting range, and intersecting span. Now what I would like is an essentially this one, but including the ends. So an inclusive one. Let's see what this does. Oh, okay, this just leads back to index, an index-based iteration, which does this. Okay, that makes sense. And containment is excluded at the end, of course. Well, what we could do to not break this, because this is by design, is construct a range that includes the next character. So what we could do is cursor range to be a new what is it again? Is this a syntax range, I think? And I think we have a constructor where we just specify start and the end. And this is what we will pass on to the traversal function. What's your problem? Oh, because of course it has to intersect this range. Let's try to quickly recompile the language server. Again, we have to close everything, which is annoying. If anyone knows a way to be able to reinstall a .NET tool, because the language server is a .NET tool, without having to shut it off, please do tell me. Okay, let's try this one more time. So I'll rename it to a single letter variable like J. It didn't rename this instance, which is concerning. Now it did. Was this a fluke? Because we didn't... Okay, we still have this problem. Oh, because I think I considered the range the wrong way. Now it's considering this part as well, instead of going backwards. So this was a stupid mistake. Let's see if we can do that. So what we should do is go backwards by the position. So let's do something like, if the column is 0, then we will do an empty range. But if the column is non-zero, we can do this. And yes, this is super nasty. I really don't like this. We should definitely have a way to include the members that are just left behind by the cursor. So we should consider adding an API for this, and I'll even leave a note here. But anyway, let's try this again, and let's hope that it works this time. Just for safety, I'll update the code so we don't have that off by one error. Again, it's very annoying, and I'm hoping to fix it soon. Okay, let's rename it to K. It seems to work. What about this end? Okay. This time we have the same thing the other way, and it's probably because the range is empty. I'm going to guess that the range is empty and it's discarding it because we might have made containment too smart. What if I just do this for now? Now this is probably not even correct, but we'll see. It might be good enough for now, and we will wait until that better API is created. So let's try to rename it to... Okay, it still doesn't work, and it's probably still tripping up on that position. Let's see that. Okay, so the range we're considering is from line 8, column 8 to line 8, column 9. And based on 0 indexing, which we have, I think that this is correct, or at least it should be included. Or maybe I'm wrong here. It's really hard because VS Code uses 1 based indexing, and we're using 0 based indexing because that's usually easier on the math, and it's really hard to convert in your head. Maybe now what we're doing is that if the column is non-zero, maybe we are going 1 behind. So we have the same problem now, but on the other end. So what I'm going to do, we have completed this feature essentially. So we added the important part, which is the token renaming logic. I'm going to leave this as is for now. And off camera, we will discuss this new syntax API. It will be probably something like an additional parameter to traverse subtree at position that will allow us to include the right end of syntax ranges, and that should hopefully solve our problem. Now, with that, I think we have done everything that we were planning for today, and this stream hasn't even been an hour, so that's wonderful. Let's check the checklist just in case. I think we covered everything, so if there are any questions, please ask them in the next few minutes. Otherwise, we will end the stream. Again, you can ask the questions in the Twitch chat or in the Draco Discord server. I'm looking at both on a side monitor. Okay, no questions this time either. So thank you everyone for watching, and bye bye.